Let's turn from there to our other big focus today, because in a rare gesture, Shehbaz Sharif, the new Prime Minister of Pakistan, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi have exchanged greetings in the last 48 hours after the new Pakistan Prime Minister took over. With a new government in Islamabad, questions are being raised whether the post-Pulwama chill between the two countries can finally lead to a thaw. Our special focus will have special guests from Islamabad and New Delhi in a moment, but take a look at what exactly is the ground reality.
Indo-Pak ties hit a big low after the terror attack that killed 40 CRPF Jawans in the heart of Srinagar on February 14, 2019. In retaliation, the Indian Air Force bombed terror safe havens deep inside Pakistani territory.
मैं मोहम्मद शहबाज शरीफ
सिद्ध के दिल से हल्फ उठाता हूं
सिद्ध के दिल से हल्फ उठाता हूं.
With Shehbaz Sharif taking charge as the Prime Minister, the two countries could be looking at a new opening. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, among the first world leaders to congratulate Sharif, expressed his country's desire for peace and stability in a region free of terror. Shehbaz thanked Modi for his wishes and sought peaceful settlement of disputes, including Jammu and Kashmir. Much will also depend on Shehbaz's coalition partner, Pakistan People's Party. Bilawal Zardari Bhutto, the chief of PPP, is tipped to be the next foreign minister. But an outreach in the immediate future could be unlikely.
भारत के साथ हम अच्छे ताल्लुकात के ख्वाह हैं, लेकिन मसला कश्मीर के मुनसिफाना हल तक पायदार अमन कायम नहीं हो सकता. और हम कश्मीरी भाइयों और बहनों के लिए हर फोरम पर आवाज़ उठाएंगे, डिप्लोमेटिक एफर्ट्स करेंगे, उनको डिप्लोमेटिक सपोर्ट देंगे, मॉरल सपोर्ट देंगे. ये हमारा हक है, वो हमारे भाई हैं.
Incidentally, the two big peace initiatives by New Delhi, Atal Bihari Vajpayee's bus ride to Lahore and Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Christmas stopover in Pakistan, happened when Shehbaz's elder brother Nawaz Sharif was the Pakistani Prime Minister. Both times, Nawaz Sharif was scuttled by the Pakistani army. Shehbaz is known to have a better relationship with the army, which controls the country's foreign and defense policy. The Sharifs are also close to industrialists like Sajjan Jindal, who has played a role in back-channel talks earlier. The new Prime Minister, however, has his hands full. He has many bigger challenges to handle, like an impending bankruptcy and surging inflation.
महंगाई अपने अरूज पर है. मजमूई तौर पर पाकिस्तान ने 2018 तक 25,000 अरब रुपए कर्ज लिए थे. सितम ज़रीफ़ी ये है कि इमरान नियाज़ी की हुकूमत के इस 3.5 साल या पौने 4 साल के इस अर्जे में इसमें 20,000 अरब रुपए का इजाफा किया गया है. 20,000 अरब रुपए का.
Most importantly, Pakistan will have elections next year or even earlier, which would make Kashmir more a diversionary tactic for the country's politicians. Any big peace initiative may have to wait till the next elections. Bureau Report, India Today.
First to you, Mushahid Hussain, how are we to interpret the rise of Shehbaz Sharif, his appointment? He's someone who's faced serious corruption charges, has gone to jail for money laundering charges. His brother Nawaz Sharif, former Prime Minister, your old boss, is in London, unable to come to Pakistan for now. Maryam Nawaz Sharif has serious charges against her, can't contest elections. How do you respond to Imran Khan saying that this government which is taken over is a government of the corrupt who are trying to protect themselves? Is this going to be real change in Pakistan or not?
Well, unfortunately, in the past regime, which has just been eased out through a vote of no confidence in Pakistan's parliament, which was a historic first, there was a lot of trial by allegation. And many of the allegations were false and baseless. But the propaganda was so intense that you had to demonize the political opponents, of whom Mr. Shehbaz Sharif was the leading contender as leader of the opposition. Mr. Shehbaz Sharif has been in public life for the last 30 years. He has developed a well-deserved reputation for delivery, for being a doer, as Chief Minister of Punjab during his 3 tenures. And he's seen as a good hands-on administrator, someone which is required by Pakistan in the current circumstances to sort out issues and settle the country in terms of stability and economy and generally good governance.
But you won't see Mushahid Hussain as a short-term Prime Minister. Elections likely any time within the next 12 months. Is he simply doing a holding job with a singular aim of ousting Imran Khan, which you've succeeded with? Now you've got a coalition between the PML and the PPP, which most believe cannot last. So are we going to see actually a durable government, or is this just a stopgap arrangement?
No, it's not a stopgap arrangement. The purpose is to complete the tenure and have the next elections as scheduled in August 2023. And you talk of the coalition, it's not just a coalition between the People's Party and the Pakistan Muslim League. It's I would say it's a unique kind of rainbow coalition which Pakistan has never seen before. The religious right, the liberal left, nationalists from different provinces, Pakhtun nationalists, Baloch nationalists, from Karachi, the MQM. So I think it's most representative of Pakistan's public opinion. And don't forget, Mr. Imran Khan got 32% of the popular vote in the 2018 elections. 68% of the popular vote, which did not vote for him or rather against him, is now represented in the present government.
G. Parthasarathi, do you really see this as a long-term arrangement in Pakistan, as Mushahid Hussain seems to suggest, this new coalition that has been formed, rainbow coalition he calls it, or was it simply done with a single objective, oust Imran Khan at all costs and the army tacitly supporting it?
Rajdeep, I would have had to be an astrologer rather than a diplomat if I was to assess various alternatives which will emerge in Pakistan. But talking of Shehbaz Sharif, I knew him personally because of the Vajpayee visit, and I found him serious. In fact, he was very impressed at that point in time by the information technology hub of Bangalore, and he wanted to visit it. Unfortunately, Kargil came in the way and things fell apart. So, yes, the reputation he had was of a good administrator. But the reality also is that politics at a national level was run by his elder brother. So, who's now cooling his heels in London. So let us see how it plays out. But as I see it, Imran was becoming a hot potato for the army. And if he could offend a person like General Bajwa, who's supposed to be very considerate, there are problems. And the problem really arose, as far as I'm concerned, when Faiz Hamid was the DGISI. He was a bit too much of a showboy. And Imran, for whatever reason, was cultivating him, and even the army chief started having second thoughts. And Faiz Hamid was eased out despite strong opposition from Imran.
So are you saying Shehbaz Sharif will have a better relationship with the army? You seem to suggest he's more a businessman politician.
Yes.
He's someone who will know how to manage the army?
Yes, because he, as far as I know, had a much better relationship with the military. He was much closer to them, and
unlike his brother.
Unlike his brother, who was, his brother was his lordship.
Let me just take that to Mushahid Hussain. Given that, as Parthasarathi and many other observers believe that Shehbaz Sharif is an intelligent politician who knows which way the wind is blowing. Some call him a businessman politician. Do you see him building any kind of new equation with New Delhi? In his first speech, he spoke about Kashmir, resolutions of Kashmir, typical Pakistan speak. Do you really see any breakthrough? Can we really see any breakthrough in the ice that has set in between the two countries, Syed Mushahid Hussain?
Let me pick up the thread from where Mr. G. Parthasarthi mentioned. He mentioned about Vajpayee Saab's visit to Lahore. And at that time, I was Minister for Information and Broadcasting, and Mr. Parthasarthi would recall that I was actually the minister in waiting for Mr. Vajpayee. And that means that I was this protocol minister. I accompanied him everywhere. And in that delegation, there was also Mr. Prakash Singh Badal, the then Chief Minister of Punjab. And he and Shehbaz Sharif had a very good rapport. And they had a lot of agreements between the two provinces of India and Pakistan, respectively. So I would say that Shehbaz Sharif, and you can see in his speech also, he mentioned that, yes, there is an impediment of Kashmir, but let us try to move forward. And poverty and other issues he mentioned as a common challenge for both India and Pakistan. And he responded very positively to Prime Minister Modi's message of congratulations to him. And so I would say that I see a relaxation of tensions because Shehbaz Sharif is a man who is very non-confrontational and who tries to move forward with consensus. So that intensity which you saw in the recent past in terms of rhetoric and in terms of tit-for-tat statements, that will no longer be there.
So you're saying the rhetoric will come down, but will that actually change anything on the ground? Can any Pakistan Prime Minister at the moment really do a serious reach out to India?
I think the problem is with see, in Pakistan today, there is no constituency that seeks confrontation with India, whether it's the political forces, whether it's the parliament, whether it's even the armed forces. You have General Bajwa, who is willing to have an outreach with India, and he said so on many occasions. In fact, recently as Chairman Defense Committee, I was in the military headquarters. We were getting a briefing from him, and he talked about his vision for India. And I said, General Bajwa, what you are saying is very similar to what Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif has always said about relations with India. Does that mean that you and Nawaz Sharif have the same perspective, the same vision and worldview in India? He said that is correct. So I think that, and even Imran Khan in his last speech to the nation in Pakistan, he praised India, of course, in a roundabout manner. So you can see that. So there is this feeling that we can have an outreach. The ball is in the court of Delhi, whether India is willing to do that, because I think sometimes we feel there's an ideological foreign policy emanating from South Bloc vis-a-vis Pakistan.
You know, Mr. Parthasarthi, you had a smile on your face listening to Mushahid Hussain. He's suggesting that there is a willingness of Pakistan to reach out to India. Do you really believe that things can change dramatically with a new Prime Minister? Or will we see more of the same eventually? Cross-border terror in particular, with an election in Kashmir later this year, could remain a serious challenge.
Well, look, the Kashmir thing will continue. The Lashkar-e-Taiba, despite its leader being supposedly jailed, is still around. The Jaish-e-Mohammed is still around, and they are not there to play cricket. So I would always be prepared for that eventuality. That is the reality of it. But yes, I agree with the Mushahid. I personally believe the first thing we should do is to see that we have ambassadors in each other's capital. The reduction in the level of diplomatic representation, this is not something desirable for two neighbors, however many problems they may have. And Imran, I'm afraid...
So we are moving post-Pulwama. Importantly, you're suggesting, Mr. Parthasarthi, Pulwama 2019, we are now in 2022. 3 years later, you're saying we can move beyond and restore full diplomatic relations.
No, I'm saying that yes, I do believe that should be done. It should look. Let's be very, very clear. Ever since Musharraf's days, we've been having good back-channel talks, and we've got people in Delhi, and I'm sure they have counterparts in Islamabad who maintain that sort of link. So yes, I think we should move in that direction, because ultimately you have to talk to each other. And yes, rhetoric will be there from the other side. But Mr. Modi, don't forget, he reached out to Nawaz Sharif.
Yes, he did.
That's because of his political standing, and he could do it. So I think as long as we get, as the government gets the right signals, There will be an inclination to go ahead. In what way? I cannot.
It's an interesting, the fact is that Prime Minister Modi did reach out to Nawaz Sharif, but Mushahid Hussain, we know that Shehbaz Sharif has strong links with business community in India. He has in the past apparently used some of those business links. Is Shehbaz Sharif though in a position to really reach out to India, given the fact that the real challenge before him seems to be getting your economy first on track? Aren't Pakistan's problems at the moment at home first? Therefore, the next few months, Shehbaz Sharif will be involved, A, running a messy coalition, and B, managing the economy. Is India really top priority?
I would say that there's been a very historic change in this region. And this region means, I'm talking of Pakistan and its four neighbors like China, India, Iran, and Afghanistan. There has been the retrenchment of American power from this region. Pakistan feels it has got strategic space and more autonomy to pursue that. And Pakistan, of course, I agree with you, the primary agenda of Shehbaz Sharif's government would be domestic to stabilize the economy, but also there's regional economic connectivity now. And we feel that in this context, with this new strategic space that Pakistan has, Pakistan would be willing to take initiatives vis-a-vis India, because as I mentioned, there's a broad national consensus in Pakistan. Ever since we both became nuclear powers in 1998, I think that in Pakistan there's also a national self-confidence that there's no possibility of a conventional conflict anymore. So the only way forward is talking. And I've always advocated the 3 C's, cricket, commerce, and culture, as low-hanging fruit to take this forward. And I agree with Partha that right now we don't even have ambassadors or high commissioners. For starters, we have to do that, and then we get on to moving to the other aspects of, instead of talking at each other, talking to each other on issues like any other civilized neighbors.
So the first step is to restore, in a sense, full diplomatic relations by having ambassadors and high commissioners in both countries. Yeah. Mushahid Hussain, you could be a contender for that, given your strong ties. We've known you for years. You could be a potential ambassador to India.
I'll give him some good South Indian food here.
And you'll give him
good... Ambassadorship is a very boring job, and I'll do that when I retire in 20 years' time. I think journalism and politics is more interesting and fascinating. Let's leave the ambassadorship to either retired generals or diplomats like Mr. Parthasarathi, who would do a better job. But I think, having said that, I feel that there is this opportunity, a window of opportunity which is there. With the Ukraine crisis, the Americans are focusing on Europe. Asia has let the region decide its own destiny. Afghanistan, we have seen the retrenchment. Modi has just won his election in UP, I think, and he feels that he will probably be again back in power in 2024. And let's be two things I just want to clarify, Mr. Parthasarathi mentioned. One is that, you talk of military in Pakistan. It was General Musharraf who was most flexible on Kashmir, and he was a military ruler. And General Bajwa has been very flexible also. When India wanted a ceasefire restored in the line of control, and they talked to us, we responded very well. And you can see the ceasefire, which was now in place since February 2021, is holding. Okay. And yes, jihadis have been there, but there are also Hindu jihadis now in India. So Hindutva is a reality which we have to deal with. So it works on both sides.
I'm not going to get into a debate, surely comparing the kind of jihadism we've seen and cross-border terrorism with Hindutva terror, as you seem to call it. I believe they are two completely different worlds. So, Mushahid Hussain, you and I can disagree on that. But Mr. Parthasarathi, you want to make a final point?
Yeah, I think, look, as I said, I'm inclined to be cautious, but times change, and knowing the Prime Minister, he will carefully weigh these things. And as I said, let us not get overexcited. I still believe that the jihadi groups are active in Pakistan, and much depends on who the army chief is. Right. Frankly, in Pakistan, when it comes to India, the politicians don't matter. It is really the army chief. Musharraf
I don't agree with
after Kargil.
That's not true. Look
after
at
Kargil,
the most important decision in Pakistan's history on national security was taken by civilian politicians. Bhutto started the nuclear program and Nawaz Sharif tested it. And the initiatives towards India has been taken by civilian political leaders.
No, but the fact is the army has a veto right. Mushahid Hussain, let's be clear. Let's be clear. In a country where the army has ruled for almost half of your 75 years, are you telling me the army has a complete hands-off approach towards India?
Please read the book of Shyam Saran, former Foreign Secretary, how India views the world, how the agreement in 2006 on Siachen was scuttled by the Indian security establishment, the General J.J. Singh, the Indian military, and the RAW chief. Shyam Saran's book, How India Views the World, documents that. So please don't lecture us on that. You have a hardcore extremist right-wing establishment in your own country. So I think let's accept the facts. You are entitled to your opinion, but not entitled to your facts. And I'm quoting Shyam Saran in his book.
The fact is, and this is a hard fact, half of the 75 years, Mushahid Hussain ji, of your country have been ruled by the military. You will have to accept that. And even after the Lahore bus yatra that you spoke, we got Kargil. Even after when Prime Minister Modi went and met Nawaz Sharif, you will recall in 2015, in 2016 we had Pathankot and the terror attack within months there and later on in Uri. So let's be clear. There are different... there is a super establishment in Pakistan of the ISI army. Let's be clear. That's not going to change whether whoever becomes Prime Minister.
Kashmiris have not accepted the Indian occupation. Kashmiris have not accepted the status quo in occupied Kashmir.
There you got your answer, Rajdeep. That's the mindset.
Sayyid Mushahid Hussain from Pakistan, G. Parthasarathy from New Delhi. Always good to have two fine voices telling us the road ahead in this prickly relationship as Pakistan enters what many believe is a Naya Pakistan under a new Prime Minister, at least for now. Thank you both very much for joining me.
And good luck. All the best, Partha. See you in Islamabad someday.
Zero-sum game at times when it comes to India and Pakistan. But let's hope that we can at least break the ice step by step.